We're here today for a little bit of a candid discussion with somebody who I've, in recent years, considered to be a friend here on YouTube, somebody with very similar passions to me, and somebody who is all about the history and the vintage stuff when it comes to G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Now, many of you followed his channel for the 10 primary years that he was active as a YouTuber from 2014 to 2024. I certainly rewatched a bunch of his videos. In particular, every time I wanted to put my USS flag together, I went and checked out his video. And since it's been a while since I've put my USS flag together, I'll probably need to do the same thing again. But he has a lot of videos other than that, covering Joes from the 80s, the 90s, even some of the 12-inch Joes. And we all miss him on this platform. So I'd like to bring in Bryan from HCC788.
Hello, Ken. It's a candid discussion. I misread the memo. I thought it was a candy discussion. So I'll have to throw out all of my notes, and we're just completely improvising here. It has nothing
Or
to do with candy, I understand. It's candid.
or we could reset for one of these years of Halloween, and then candy
Yeah.
will be plenty at that time. Now, I
I,
would
I
normally promise this Halloween, but I'll probably forget and do something else. So I'll promise a future Halloween
all right.
at some point, and then if
Well,
that
I had
day
my
never
heart set on
comes,
candy, so we'll take a rain check on the candy, and we'll go with candid.
candid or Valentine's Day and chocolate, because that's a kind of candy.
Yeah.
So, welcome. It's been a minute. So, how you been, man?
Pretty good, really. Actually, quite good. Busy, but busy for the most part in some really good ways. Busy with travel, including travel recently, where I got to see you. And hi again.
That's right. Relative to the time of this recording, I just saw you less than a month ago.
Yes, yeah. It's like, yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's like we're like seeing each other virtually. We only used to only see each other virtually, and then you started
Yes.
showing up in person, and now it feels kind of weird to see you virtually again. But it was really cool to actually see you in Georgia for Joefest. Uh, I am really jazzed about the success of Delta 17, and I'm just really enjoying seeing you. Yes, seeing you part of that. So it's given me a lot of joy.
Yes, and for those who are wondering, like, because I saw the comments of your last video on Delta 17. Hey, are you coming out of retirement? Why are you back? I thought you said you're retired. All of you who said that, you blame this guy. Not, am I pointing the right way or am I
Yeah,
pointing the wrong way? Because StreamYard sometimes is reversed. But yeah, you blame me, not him, because I said, hey, can you do a review for us? And I just kind of gave a time window. I'm like, I know you're basically retired, so just do it anytime within this time window. If you're good, have at her. So anyone who's asking why he did that, that is my fault. So
yes.
having said that, that
Blame
got a lot of
Ken.
views, and a lot of people said they watched your review. So blame Ken for the good things and the bad things.
Yes.
Um, yes, and um, so I mean, you were pretty active from 2014 to 2024 on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I realized for the last year, like I hadn't seen anyone really ask you on, maybe I'm wrong, but I hadn't seen anybody ask you to come on and do much.
A little bit.
Um
What's on Joe Mind has asked me a couple times. Yeah, I've been asked a couple times, but for the most part, I leave it to the kids who are active. I'm happy to help out, and I'm happy to appear on somebody's show if I'm asked. But probably people are wanting the current big names, the really hip people. Um,
well, I don't know. I mean, looks like your channel's still growing. You're almost at 20,000 subscribers, and I swear that's a little bit more than when you said you were retired. So
it's a little,
you might have to
but
do a 20,000 celebration when you're not active, which is kind of funny,
I
right?
may have to. Um, One of the things that was talked about actually quite a bit um, at Joefest is whether I will do any more videos on that channel. And I mean, I couldn't say no, but I also couldn't say yes. Maybe is the best that I could say. There are aspects of it that I really, really miss. Um, which is one of the reasons why I did the unboxing of the GI Joe Extreme.
Yep.
toys, because I just, I miss doing that. It's fun. It's enjoyable, and I just hadn't done it in a long time. So I figured, what the hell? And yeah, I just really enjoyed that.
Well, how
Um,
about this? My challenge to everyone. Look what I see here. I see 19,700 subscribers. So if we can, oh, hold on. I did something with my. Are you still there?
yes.
Okay, I think I did something with my with my browser there, and all of a sudden it disappeared. So when you can plan all this, and then all of a sudden you misclick something, and the sound disappears, and you're just like, okay, what's going on? Sorry. For a second, we saw his channel at 19,700 subscribers. I challenge everybody to help get him to 20,000. He will have no choice but to do a live
Yeah.
stream celebration of 20,000. That is my dare, double dare, triple dare to
Well,
you, and my
if it's a
challenge to.
triple dare, then I don't have any choice, right? Now, for real, like, I didn't think that it would grow at all once I stepped away, but it has still steadily grown a little bit. If it hits 20,000, I think, like, I'd have to do like a live stream or some kind of get together or something special. I still appreciate everybody who watched the channel just as much as I did when I was actively making videos. I'm still extremely grateful, and hitting 20,000 would be a surprise, certainly. But I would have to show appreciation in some way. That's it's very humbling that that many people would, bother to watch my ramblings and my dumb jokes and all of that. Um, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So yeah, okay, it's a triple dare, so I have no choice now.
We're back on the playground. I double dog, triple dog, dare you to blah blah blah. Um, hey, you know what? Form BX257 came back after a little while. He might do something sporadic. I don't know. It's been a few months, but it was nice to see. Maybe you'll go down that avenue and be like, you know what? I really miss doing this. I know it's been half a year, but I'm gonna do a thing, and we all welcome that, right? I stay subscribed to the channel just on the off chance you do a GI Joe Extreme video or something to that effect. So okay, maybe that's the new avenue. I don't know, but I mean, today was going to be about a little bit about your journey on YouTube, some of the old JoeCons, some of your upbringing in the GI Joe community, and even as a kid growing up collecting Joes. Maybe in the future, I bring you on for a future topic, right? Maybe
Yeah,
we'll talk about something comic related, or favorite toys, or you know,
that would be fun.
quirky things we don't like about Joe, whatever it is, right? And you mentioned the Joe Fests, and we've actually met at each Joe Fest that I started going to. So here's us in 2023 with my crappy camera back then, but I managed to get a selfie with you, right? um,
Yeah.
we didn't get a proper selfie in 2024, but I filmed a little thing and then I froze the frame to try to get us candid a shot. And the look on your
That's
face is because I was about to tell a joke and you leaned in to kind of hear the punchline, and then I completely botched the punchline. So that's why you're looking a little confused there, because I confused you.
that's a
And
that's
then
that's
mhm,
the that's a pretty standard expression on my face. I'm easily confused.
that's okay. Nobody blames you whatsoever. And then in 2025, there's us with Triple D's Dungeon, or Daredevil Dave. There's us with him. And yeah. So that's 2023, 2024, and 2025. And oh, this is one of the old Joe cons, which I'm going to come back to, because this is a freeze frame screenshot from one of your videos. But first thing I wanted to do was, can you talk about like how you got into GI Joe as a kid, if you recall?
Yeah, I guess I was the target audience. In 1982, I was 7 years old, which is like that's the perfect demographic. Um, and I, like a lot of other kids, I saw it on TV, the commercials on TV. Before that, I was avidly collecting and playing with Star Wars toys. That was huge. I had tons of Star Wars action figures and vehicles, and I still did enjoy those for a long time. But when GI Joe came along, and the figures were could move better. They had knees and elbows, and the vehicles were like hyper detailed, and the tank was motorized, and um, these things like really sucked me in. Um, so it I wouldn't say that everything immediately switched to from Star Wars to GI Joe, but it was pretty quick. It was pretty fast. I remember the first GI Joe action figure I got was Breaker. Of all figures, Breaker. But I remember Breaker being in the first TV commercial that I saw. It wasn't actually the first commercial that was on TV, but the first commercial I remember seeing what had Breaker on the Ram motorcycle. And I didn't know anything about G.I. Joe at the time. I assumed Breaker was the main guy. He looked like the star of the commercial. So he had to be the main guy. And I wanted to make sure to get the main guy first. Um, so yeah, my first figure had no weapons and just his helmet and backpack and headset. But even those accessories were just like really cool. So Star Wars guys didn't have back pegs where you could peg a backpack in. It was even though Breaker maybe not is not the most spectacular figure even in 1982. um, it was special enough that I really wanted to get more. It also helped that um, GI Joe really took off right around then. So then all of the kids were wanting it. So all the kids at school were talking about it. You take your toys to the playground, to your neighbor's house. You'd combine your forces. Yeah, I guess marketing is the reason I got into it, because I was in the target demographic, and all of the marketing ploys they deployed actually worked on me.
So, your story is actually very similar to a podcast from the pit. Eric Hillbilly Harper, he said he was 7 years old in 1982. Said he was born in 75. I don't know if you were born 74 with a late birthday or you were,
75. Yep.
so you're 75. Okay. So
Yep.
1975. Okay. Sorry. um, get some water here. Hydration is good. Stay
Hydration is
healthy.
important.
Stay healthy, kids. Hillbilly Harper says that he collected Star Wars and he loved the articulation of GI Joe, and he would lose all the weapons for Star Wars, so he picked the first guy who didn't have a weapon in GI Joe, which which was Breaker. So he basically said he got into the same. So basically, 7 years old, grabs Breaker for the first time, coming from, or Breaker is his first Joe, and he comes from the Star Wars fandom before that. That is quite. That's amazing. Like it
If
just, yeah.
if you were around at the time, it really can't be understated. First of all, how popular Star Wars was. Kenner was like print money with those with their Star Wars lines. Every kid had as many figures as they could possibly get their hands on. It was huge. Um, I remember going into toy stores at the time before Joe came out, but when Star Wars was at the height of its popularity, and I remember like having to select an action figure from a huge wall of pegs that were like, at least to me, it seemed like they were 3 feet thick, ceiling to floor, full of Star Wars action figures. It's like you could swim in them. Um, but they were selling like hotcakes. So that's, I mean, that really set up a lot of kids um, uh, to have an interest in another action figure of that scale. But that improved on Star Wars a little bit with better movement, and a lot of times better accessories. So yeah, it really, really hit at exactly the right time.
That's freaking cool. And the fact you got to be there for the rise of it, right? Because for me, by the time I started getting into it, we were getting into kind of the sub teams already. Like some of my earliest exposure was the stuff like Tiger Force and Iron Grenadiers in '88. However, because the Joe stuff holds over for an extra year or two sometimes, Um, I did catch a bunch of the movie guys. Like I did get the Renegades, Cobra Law. I know, cringe, Falcon. Law and Order. Those are the characters I grew up with, right? And if I could find a figure from '86 that was in the cartoon in that second season, it was awesome. Like it was just like, oh my god, I got General Hawk or I got
Yeah.
Wetsuit, and they were in the cartoon, which made them more special for me, right? Now, did you? This might have been a little bit past your time. Actually, it definitely was. But would you have gotten a little bit into like the GI Joe Adventure Team, even as a hand me down or anything like that?
I didn't get any. I would have liked it. I think I would have enjoyed it if I got it. Now looking back at it and discovering what I know about it now, if I had gotten some Adventure Team stuff when I was like, I don't know, 6 or something, hand me downs from somebody, I think that would have been really cool. But no, I didn't get any. My dad was just a little too old to be in that first GI Joe generation,
Yes.
and I was the oldest of my family, so
Ah, I
my
see.
brother was younger. So I came in there, yeah, right where Adventure Team was happening. There was a gap in my family's toy buying ages.
I
So
gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're really cool though. I don't. I have some 12-inch Joe, some 60s 12-inch Joe. I
Yes.
don't have any Adventure Team stuff, but I see that
Hmm.
stuff around, and it keeps tempting me to
I,
to get a sampling of it.
I do remember when you reviewed some of the 12-inch Joes, which is why I asked that question because everyone who came in during the 3 3/4 inch era, if they do have some 12-inch Joes, there's always a story behind it. Like for me, it was the fact that I was collecting the 30th anniversary stuff like Action Soldier, Action Marine, because I thought they made good army builders, good generic green shirts, and I have multiple action soldiers of the 3 3/4 inch scale that were released as 30th anniversary. I didn't understand it was a 30th anniversary of what, because in my mind,
Yeah,
GI Joe started in '82, and
right.
then somebody told me many years ago, actually there was a previous line of GI Joe, not known as a real American hero, and that is where GI Joe really began. And then you start looking at old books. Like eventually, I'm like, okay, what is the original GI Joe? And you get Daryl DePriest's book. And then a number of years ago, Kirk Bazigian and some others give a bit of an explanation to kind of help clarify what it is, and then it unearths your or unlocks your mind for that appreciation of toy history that you would have missed growing up. And
Yeah,
there's
and
something
it's really
fascinating and special about it.
yeah, it's unfortunate that I missed out on it. I have been able to learn a lot more about it, and yeah, I remember I was a little bit confused about that back in 82, 83, when the next wave of GI Joe was getting popular, and I'd hear about things like Kung Fu Grip, and things like that. I have no idea what that meant. Is that the adults were using these terms? I had no idea what they're talking about. We have swivel arm battle grip. Do they mean swivel arm battle grip? Is that what they mean? But
Lifelike hair. What is
yeah,
what is this? Eagle eye, and
right. That
you
means
know,
that meant absolutely nothing to me. Now, if I had a time machine, I would love to get some of those toys from the adults who probably just had them in their attic or otherwise would have thrown them away or put them in a garage sale. Those things would be really cool. Since I did decide to stick pretty closely to the vintage 3 3/4 inch figures, I withheld. I refrained from diving into the 12-inch. I have a few 12-inch, of a sampling, but I never actually dived in. But there's a lot of GI Joe history and origin, some of which still applied to 80s GI Joe, that you can get from the 70s version of the toy. There were some holdovers and some interesting
yep.
parallels.
I mean, when I first, because I grew up with the Dress Marine version of Gung Ho, right? And if you go back and look at a dress marine from the 12-inch era, obviously the gung ho is a derivative of that.
Hmm.
And I know the dress marine uniform is it's something that's historical. It's not necessarily tied to GI Joe, but it's nice to see some sort of a movement or some sort of a parallel, or the use of the Green Beret, but as a character of Falcon, right? The
Yeah,
Green Beret goes way beyond just that, but it's just
yeah,
nice to see that migration over, because what the first 60s Joe I got was a 66 Green Beret,
nice.
because it's a popular outfit. Falcon was one of the very first, might have even been the first Joe I got. I can't remember if I got him or the Renegades 3 pack first. But there's something special of that, about that to me. And of course, Carson from 3D Joe's loves Falcon, and and because his dad was special forces. So there's just a lot of talk about it that kind of helps preserve my memory and adoration of some of that.
Speaking
Now,
of Carson and 3D Joe's, he's dug into some of the history of our line. And I mean, some of the people who worked on the packaging from the earlier eras continued to work on the packaging for the Real American Hero era. There are
like
like
Ed
literal
Morrill. Ed
carry
Morrill
yes,
was,
there are
yeah.
literal carryovers
Yep.
that directly affected the toys that we bought. So these are the pieces of history that I've been. It's been my privilege to dig into and to learn more about. It's one of the reasons why I started getting a bunch of print reference material, because even though some of that information is online, not all of it is. And the collectors, from the collectors, not the kids, but the adult collectors from the 80s, the 90s, they wrote books about it. They actually put a lot of it in print, a lot of this
Yep.
history.
Yep.
So I have endeavored to kind of dig some of that up and find some of those print references.
There's so much, right? I mean, there's Daryl DePriest's book. Dan Klingesmith has a book series. Carson has done publications, even going to the international side of things. Blood for the
Hmm.
Baron.com and
Yeah,
Total Toy Books have Action Force publications in the last number of years. So there's a lot out there on GI Joe. Like, we're a smaller community than, say, the Transformers
hmm,
fandom, but it's tight knit. Everyone knows
yeah,
everyone, and that's one of the good things, you know, about it. I guess you were an avid comics reader growing up as well for the GI Joe line.
yeah. I liked comics before GI Joe came around, but once I picked up a GI Joe comic, I was on the comics bandwagon. Yeah, I started to like think I started to hold all comic books to the standard of Larry Hama's GI Joe. It's like, oh well, you know this they don't do this X-Men comic the same way that GI Joe does their storytelling. Why isn't it as good? Um, but Yeah, I did broaden my horizons a little bit over the years. Yeah, I got latched onto the comic book. I It's hard for me to remember exactly which was my first issue, because shortly after I got in the comic book, I went back and I picked up some earlier issues. So it kind of gets jumbled in my mind, like which one did I read first? I The comic book I think was around for maybe a little less than a year before I found it and latched onto it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was at the convenience store every month, checking the
Mhm.
spinner racks for the latest issue. And yeah, I really got sucked in, and it became like a major influence for me wanting to draw. Learning how to learning these art techniques. So yeah, I was sucked in pretty quickly.
So you talk about the spinner racks. If I recall correctly, that's how I found one of the issues of the Cobra Civil War, because I would have gotten to Joe a little bit after the Cobra Civil War. But back issues, as long as they were, just months back and not years back, it was possible to get them,
Yeah,
right? And incidentally, now reading the Skybound reprints of the Marvel run has just been amazing, because I've never
yeah,
really had the chance to read it start to finish. And those stories are just epic.
Yeah, Larry, he knew what he was doing, and he really approached the challenge of writing this toy book as well, as a challenge and not as a detriment or a burden, because he would have to include new characters, new vehicles. He'd have to, all these things would have to be in there, and it would have to hit certain beats because he doesn't own it. Hasbro owns it, and they want to make sure that the killer whale hovercraft is in this issue. But at least at the time when I read it, it felt really natural. It felt like it flowed really well, and it also like it sometimes became kind of a complex story uh, for a comic book that's aimed at kids. There was political intrigue, there was espionage, a lot of military terminology that he would throw in there. It was it, it it made a young reader feel like mature
Yes.
reading these stories.
Yes, because there was a lot they could do there that they didn't do in the Sunbow cartoon, such as a Saw Viper going crazy and killing some of our
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah. I'd like to, I'd like to see them try that in the Deke series. Come on, Deke. If you
And the
had,
funny thing is that tagline is, got to get tough, Yo Joe, and
yeah.
there's not that much that's tough about the Deke series, you know.
I really have, and I'm gonna come out right here on camera here and say that I have warmed to a lot of uh the later Joe stuff that I used to really dislike, and like I really thought it was stupid and poorly made. Um, I've taken a step back, and I can kind of look at the campy aspect of it, and I can appreciate it on that level. I can unironically appreciate it on the level of a camp and not to be taken too seriously. So I have even found things about the Deke series uh, that I enjoy. I don't enjoy it the way they intended to, because I it makes me giggle. I laugh at the things that are supposedly serious, but I'm still enjoying it. The 1987 movie, when they did a screening of that, what was it? 2 years ago. They did like a Fathom Events live
Yeah.
movie theater screening. Um, I went to that in Augusta, in Georgia, because it was right about the time of Joefest, and I it was the same movie I've seen a lot of times, but I really enjoyed it. And being in the movie theater with having people, expressing themselves, kind of laughing at stuff, and having that sort of communal experience with it, really went a long way to actually appreciating the movie for the first time. Now it still has all the same silly stuff that it always did have, but I can't be quite so harsh on it because I am entertained by it. I can say that I like it unironically to some extent.
I mean, going back to the Deke comment there, my second um the second time I got into GI Joe was during the 90s, was in that 92 to 93 era before Power Rangers got big, or maybe right around when Power Rangers got big. So I do have some memories of the Neon 90s, as I was a little bit older by then. The Deke cartoon, though, whenever I watch it, I always preferred the Sunbow stuff that I saw as reruns in the 80s. There are some gems there, like the Greatest Evil two-part episode with
Yeah,
Falcon and the drug addiction and the headman and that story and the Crimson Guard and all that. So that's a gem of a story, I
yeah,
think. Having said that, I mean, I like the theme song for Deke, the whole got to get tough thing. But when I'd watch the episodes, it was an extra layer of campiness that I've
yeah,
only like semi warmed up to,
Yeah,
you know.
it's
And
it's an
yeah,
acquired taste.
the issue I always had with the movie, and I've said it before, is that the year before the Transformers movie came out, and as cool as the opening for the GI Joe movie is, the Transformers had this really great '80s rock music soundtrack.
Yeah.
They introduced The Matrix, they
Hmm.
introduced Unicron, they upgraded Megatron to Galvatron. I say upgrade in quotations because some people just like Megatron better. In fact, most people do. But Megatron, Galvatron seemed more powerful, and with Megatron mortally wounded, he needed some sort of an upgrade. There were new characters, and then you get to the GI Joe movie, and in my mind, okay, the big bad is Globulus, and I'm like, well, Unicron's cooler, right? They turned Cobra Commander into a snake. I'm like, well, how come Megatron got an upgrade of sorts, you know? And it just felt like a step back when I watched the movie. Having said that, I love the Renegades. I like the redemption
Yeah.
story of Falcon. I did find too many like organic looking creatures a little bit cheesy and a little bit overdone. Um, Having said that, Sarge gets a big role about midway through the film, and that's a highlight.
Yeah.
Roadblock's obviously a highlight, but I feel very polarized about that film. I like the
Yeah.
initial power struggle between Serpentor and Cobra Commander, but as the movie drags on, I can't finish it most of the time when I try to give it a
It's
watch.
yeah, it's a that it is a tough one. But you make a really good point that the Transformers movie introduced some elements that carried on, that carried forward, that important turning points in the lore. Whereas
Yes,
the GI Joe movie, most of it, was just never mind.
yes,
Moving on,
you
moving on.
yes, because
The
what do they do
they
in Deke? They turn Cobra Commander back into a human,
Yes,
right?
they
Cobra Law
yeah,
is just gone,
yeah,
right? And it's just like, okay, so what do I do with this, right? Now, you could argue the Transformers ended very shortly after the movie, but see, in Japan, I know the movie aired in kind of a different timeline there, but if you were to continue the Japanese series, it goes for three more full seasons, right?
yeah.
After the movie, even though the movie aired late there, they still recognize it as part of the continuity.
I know
So
the Transformers movie is also really divisive, but I think it has more going.
Only because of Prime's death.
Yes. I think it has a lot more going for it than the Joe movie, even though there are parts of the Joe movie that I really enjoy. You mentioned Sergeant Slaughter. I feel like the Sergeant Slaughter scenes tend to be higher points in the movie.
100%, right? And the divisiveness of the Transformers movie, um, it was more divisive at the time. I think over the decades, because Prime got taken away from us, he's now more precious, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I wanted to touch on like how did you get started on YouTube? Like what made you pick up a camera in 2014 and say, let's do this?
Oh, like way back in the early days of YouTube, I had a small channel where I would talk about political science and philosophy and law. I would ramble on about really boring topics. But I made some friends there. There was a bit of a community in early YouTube, and I still have a lot of friends from back then. But when I went to law school, I put all that away. I didn't have time for it. I ended up deleting a lot of those videos, which was a mistake because they're totally gone now. I don't have copies saved, so those videos, instead of making them private, they're just deleted. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so I was doing YouTube already, and I had taken a break, and I went to law school, and I graduated law school in 2014. And about that same time, I was looking at getting back into GI Joe. I was interested. I was curious, I should say. I was Joe curious at the time, and I found uh, Form BX257's YouTube channel. I scoured um, uh, yojo.com, got really nostalgic for it, and I made the mistake of buying my first action figure as a collector, which was Breaker. I decided to start at the same beginning. I got Breaker again, And after a while, uh, uh, getting a few odds and ends, I thought, all I'm really doing with this stuff is I'm putting it on a shelf, and I'm the only one that sees it, other than my kids who don't care. So yeah, I know how to do a YouTube video. I know how to edit a YouTube video. I know how to create a YouTube account. So I thought, okay, this is how I can share this rather than just put it up on a shelf. And so I tried that. I did really poorly at first. I did like this action scene movie thing with the action figures, like a Chuckimation action movie thing. And while that was fun, that turned out to be really hard, like super labor intensive, and I didn't have any time on my life for anything like that.
Hmm.
So instead, I started pointing a camera at the toys and talking about them. And that was also not very good at first. So I used to listen to this podcast that was for federal workers. It was a federal workers podcast, and their tagline was "Dare to be dull." So they were talking about all this policy wonk stuff that nobody cares about and is extremely dull. But you know what? That was their niche. So I thought, yeah, that's going to be my niche. I will dare to be dull, and I was successful for a while. But I found that I really wasn't putting any of my own personality into the videos, and it was becoming really monotonous. So I just decided to play with it a bit. So 10 years later, 10 years later, I decided to stop playing with it a bit, but it was a good 10 years.
Well, I mean, you sometimes put those skits at the beginning. I remember your Dino Hunters one, which was one of your later videos. So it does seem like you had a lot of fun. And the thing is, it's one of those things that, like, because back in 2014 there were only so many um other YouTube sort of like examples out there. I think Timmer had been around for a short period of time in the Joe
Yeah,
community. Form BX was like the big mainstay at the time, and then you kind of picked up the torch and kind of ran in parallel with them. The thing is, a lot of channels came up during the pandemic. Like, I consider myself a pandemic era channel because that was the time when cell phone technology was good enough
yeah.
that you could just store stuff on a cell phone, you could edit on a phone, you could film. The microphones were good. So you're more what I consider OG era, though I realized that by the time you came on the scene, OG to you was Pixel Dan and Form
Yeah,
BX257 because they'd been around like 5 years. So
yeah.
I'm sure in your mind, you're always like the new guy to them.
It,
Just
it,
like,
it
yeah,
did feel that way. Yeah, it's ironic
right.
though that Timmer is not a pandemic channel, and yet he's the one that wears the mask. I just
Yes.
thought I would throw that in.
Yes.
But yeah, like I was the new guy. And when I was starting to think, okay, what can I add to this? Like, other than pointing a camera at a toy and talking about it, what can I actually bring to this? And I looked at what Kevin was doing, and I looked at what Timmer was doing, and I'm like, I got nothing. They basically they already have it covered. They don't need another voice. So I don't know. I started throwing in like my quirky humor. But see, Timmer has quirky humor. He already has the quirky humor stuff, taken care of. I wasn't even new. I wasn't even original at that. Um, but yeah, they had been doing it. They had different inspirations than I did. I guess they kind of inspired me. But Kevin was like he really was the early point the camera at the toy and talk about it. And
Yeah.
that was really a big draw for the sheer nostalgia. And he would share facts and information, and he just developed that style and improved at that. And then Timmer, he was a fan of like the old Channel Awesome YouTube channels. He was a big fan of Linkara, uh, and he was kind of inspired to do like a GI Joe version of that, but with his own style of humor, his own personality. So I'm over here coming up, and I'm started out with my slogan of "Dare to be dull," and I'm like, all right, what do I do? Um, but yeah, yes, I was definitely the new guy, and it took a little bit to find my niche, to find exactly where I fit in all of that.
But you know what though? Like you talk about the whole "Dare to be dull" catchphrase, but you also add the '60s slogan of "Only GI Joe is GI Joe" at the end. I like when you ended a video with that. You know, because for some people, if they didn't see those old commercials, they didn't know where it came from,
Yeah,
right? As for the whole new guy thing, see, I came around the scene in 2021. So to me, there's that gap between you and me that's not too dissimilar between you and the gap between Kevin slash Form BX257. And I know you're saying that, like, what have you offered that they didn't? And I felt the same way. I don't know how familiar, like, I know you and I have done some stuff together for Cobra Convergence and all that. I don't know how familiar you are with my history videos, though incidentally, you were in G.I. Joe 86 with me. But
yeah,
one of the things I thought of was, what do I have to offer that somebody like Secret Galaxy hasn't already done? And incidentally, when Geek Dad Life brought me and Secret Galaxy on for an audio podcast, one of the things Secret Galaxy said is, "Hey, Ken, I certainly didn't invent this stuff. So if you have a different take on stuff, so be it." Because one of the things that he did is he, incidentally, got Robotech slash the Japanese equivalent of Robotech back here. He took all his Robotech videos and he supercut them into one long, like 2 hour thing. And the GI Joe stuff, when I did the year by year GI Joe stuff in the '80s, I supercut that whole thing into a long 2.5 hour thing, and I think I aired it as part of one of the last Cobra Convergence. In fact, the last Cobra Convergence, and I did the same thing with the Transformers one, and I thanked Secret Galaxy for the idea, and he said, "I got that idea, Ken, from somebody else." So, he wouldn't even like he accepted the thanks, but he didn't want the credit for it,
yeah.
right? And incidentally, you'll see that there's no retrospective for the GI Joe movie in my supercut, but there is a retrospective for the Transformers movie in the Transformers supercut. Just bringing that conversation full circle
Yes,
back to
yes.
where we were a few minutes
Bring it
ago
back
there.
around.
Yeah,
And he raises a really good point. I mean, we're not exactly inventing the genre here, but really the one thing that you can bring that nobody else can is your priorities, your thoughts and opinions, um, just the things that you care about. As long as you're being genuine, nobody else can imitate that. I mean, they can try to, but as long as you are bringing yourself, that is something that nobody else can bring to the table, and that is something that is necessarily unique. Um, Now, of course, you not everybody wants to put the work in to produce a video and you know uh, you know improve their technique and stuff like that. Um, but I mean, you don't have to. Like, no, nobody's like. There's no rule that says you got to become popular. In fact, there are downsides to popularity, and I would say, if that's your goal, you might shoot for a different goal. But yeah, like nobody can do what you do, even if you are doing something similar to what somebody else does. As long as you're not like literally copying, don't literally copy. But as long as you're being your real self, and as long as you're bringing your genuine thoughts to it, then that's that's the thing that makes yours special, and um, and, and nobody can take that away. I mean, that's your niche.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, you can choose a topic and you'll present it differently from somebody else, no matter what you do. Like one of my most recent videos, History of GI Joe 1990. One of the reasons I put that video off for so long is I wasn't sure what I could do other than go through the figures and the vehicles. Sorry, my throat. One by one. But then I started reading the Toy Wars book, and that transition from Stephen Hassenfeld to Alan Hassenfeld, who, rest in peace, Alan
Yes.
passed
Yeah.
away, days ago, relative to the time of this recording. And when I was reading Toy Wars, I'm like, well, this is, I'm looking at the sales figures. I'm looking at the Tonka um, was looking to be bought out in 1990. The sale completed in 1991. Then I was reading Carson's 3D Joe's Omnibus, or the Art of G.I. Joe Real American Hero Omnibus that he sells through 3djoes.com. And there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff about, like, okay, G.I. Joe sales bottomed out to $65 million in 1990, then went back up over 70 million, then went back over 100, then went down again, then the line died. I'm like, well, there's all these things like sales figures, the change of CEO, the change of staff, the change of the logo, the branding team changing. Vinny DeLeva was now with the brand. And there was all that in addition to the figures, and all of a sudden I was interested to make that video again. Whereas my previous production style, I didn't include any of that stuff, right? So you evolve, and even if you cover the same topic as somebody else, you'll bring something to the table that they didn't bring. If you watch my history of cops and crooks and you watch Secret Galaxies, they are completely different beasts. In fact,
Yeah.
he even messaged me and told me he was actually going to make one, and said, "Hey, I don't mean to release mine too close to yours." I'm like, Dan, you have nothing to be. What do you call it? You don't. I know you're just saying it to be courteous, right? But I encourage you to put that up, because if anything, I'm gonna show up on the play next list,
Yeah.
possibly on the side of the YouTube menu, and with the size of your channel, I might get some traffic. So have at her, Dan. Right? That's how I chose to see it. Right? Um, I wanted to touch on. We talked a little bit about this already, but Cobra Convergence was for a good number of years an annual summer July long event that you did, where you brought content creators, sometimes websites, across the YouTube and website space to participate in. Everybody would send in a video or do a live stream or even do an article sometimes. Um, what got this started? And was it something you looked forward to every year?
Yeah, so how it got started, it was just me, Timmer, and Kevin, 4BX257. I know his username is really long, but I have to specify because there's more than one Kevin. So
Yes.
that Kevin and me and Timmer did that in 2016. And it was just a fun thing that we all did together. I had looked at what Kevin was doing and looked at what Timmer was doing, and I really liked both of them. But it looked like the two of them never actually worked together, and I thought it would be really cool to get them in some kind of collaboration for something. So I sent I sent Kevin a message asking if he would be interested in collaborating. And then I think I put a comment on Timmer's video. I think it was a comment saying, hey, if you had a chance to collaborate with another channel, would you be interested? They both said yes. So then we just started like working on this secret plan. Um, it was a 1 day event. We just did like we the three of us did a special video all on the same day, and we coordinated it, and we traded ideas, and we collaborated, and it was a special thrill for me because I was a fan of both of these guys. Like this was really special. I'm getting to work with some of the people that I have watched and who have inspired me. Um, So that was really special. The name Cobra Convergence was supposed to be a placeholder, because I was mentioning like we got to call it something like Cobra Convergence, but we'll come up with something better, later. But it stuck, so it just became Cobra Convergence for all time. Um, that's really how it started. I really loved both of those guys. I really enjoyed their work, and I wanted to work with them. But I thought it would be a fun and unique experience to have like three GI Joe YouTubers, uh, you know, work on the same project, and we did it as a surprise. We were really sneaky about it, and I had Cobra month that I did before Cobra Convergence. It was just a month of Cobra stuff, and uh, yeah, I at the last part of the last video of Cobra month, then I did this whole, it was a mask inspired theme where, I called in, Kevin and Timmer to like converge and, work together on this special project. So yeah, it was announced kind of as a surprise at the end of my Cobra month video for 2016. After that, we well, first of all, it was a lot of fun, and those guys, Kevin and Timmer, they are as cool in person or behind the scenes as they seem to be on the screen. They're just really cool guys, and I really enjoy working with them. But at that time, there was starting to be an accumulation of new content creators in the YouTube space and elsewhere talking about GI Joe. So the next year, we reached out to a few more, and then the following year, we reached out to a few more, and we just started expanding it. So that's kind of that is how it happened. And we did that for well, we did it for 7 years, but we kind of skipped a year because I had a year off. It was a whole thing. Um, but we were supposed to do Cobra Convergence 8 last year, but um, that was around the time that I retired. This
Mm-hmm.
is something that I have apologized to people for in person because I'm not I'm I feel guilty about how that went down because I had been trying to put this together, trying to promote it, and trying to get people involved, and I did not see it through. I failed to see it through, and um, uh, that is something that I regret about how all of that happened.
So
Um,
what when I talk to the other content creators, and this includes Toy Polloi and others, because you set the schedule already, many of us just went on our scheduled dates and we still recognize Cobra Convergence 8 as having happened. Is it quite as formal as if you had been there pumping every single day? No, but we still recognize it. That's why I pulled this up, right? Because to me, that is the last Cobra Convergence. I know in your mind, 7 was the last one you were able to take the helm. But by that point, there was enough momentum, right? And I only joined at Cobra Conversion 6. I wasn't there in the early ones, right? But a lot of us went on our scheduled days and still recognized Cobra Convergence 8. So while you might feel a bit apologetic and feel that, you could have taken a bit more ownership when it was happening, there'd been enough accumulation of previous years that this one in some ways kind of just ran itself.
and it's an honor, and I am more appreciative than I can express. Um, I'm very grateful to everyone who carried forward and uh, finished that event when I wasn't able to. I would also like to give another kudo to Timmer because he actually kept the spirit alive in my gap year. Um,
Yes, he did. He did his
so
own like mini Cobra Convergence where he just did a video every day.
yeah, so like this is what I'm talking about. Like there is uh, a lot of great content creators and great people in the community. And when we were doing Cobra Convergence and when it was in full swing, and we were like had content creators every day in June, or every day in July. Um, these people, I felt like they know what they're doing. Each one has a unique voice. They know their audience. All I have to do is just give them the opportunity to create and then
Yep.
step back, and they do amazing things. Some really incredible things were created for Cobra Convergence,
Yep.
and that is something that will always be deeply appreciated by me, and I deeply appreciate as well the people who honored Cobra Convergence 8 last year, even though I did not step up and finish it out.
Did you find that towards the end there, was it hard for you to keep chasing the schedule of doing a review every week for because you did vintage reviews pretty much weekly for years, other than the gap year you had in 2020 where you were absent for the latter part of that year.
Uh, that did lead to a lot of fatigue, especially at that time of the year. Cobra Convergence came shortly after Joefest. I was trying to also keep up um, my weekly routine. My videos were edit heavy, um, and writing heavy, so they were not easy or quick to produce. And yeah, that led to a lot of fatigue. So while at the same time I was really excited to see what the participants would come up with, um, I really overextended myself, and I got myself in a situation for a couple of years when I really wasn't sure that I could do it. Um, there just weren't enough hours in the day, and there weren't enough days in the week to do everything that needed to be done. And yeah, I kind of worked myself into the ground. But it it that makes it too much about me. Um, and it wasn't supposed to be about me. I was working to try to put the spotlight on everyone else that was participating. Um, and I felt like if I don't give 100% of myself to give everyone that participates the maximum spotlight that I can, then I am letting somebody down.
Hmm.
So yeah, I overdid it a little bit. I didn't delegate very much when I should have. Um, but I try to think more about all the creativity. I try to not think about the difficulties and the challenges, because so much good came out of it. So much creativity came out of it, and that's something that, hey, it still exists. It's still out there. It's still on YouTube or in podcasts or on the various sources where it was made. You can still find all that stuff.
Yep.
So archaeologists going back years from now, when they dust off the remnants of YouTube and start to look at the stuff that we made, they'll all these things are still there to be pieced back together. And that was not me. That was all the people who participated, and they put in extra work to do extra stuff for that month. So um, that's why, like, even if it was exhausting, I really still have a lot of gratitude for what everybody did.
Well, we're also quite grateful that you took the ball and made sure you promoted somebody on each day, because when we hear about Cobra Convergence, the rest of us go, "Oh, what's my topic gonna be?" And they don't think about the other potentially 30, and in the final year, almost 60 presenters.
Yeah.
Um, you're the one that's got to think about that. So while you're grateful to us for the content, we're grateful to you for bringing us and uniting us to be able to do that cause. And like, we got some good years out of that, many good years out of that. So now, speaking of good years, I'm going to transition a little bit here. You did mention you went to the JoeCons from 2014 to 2018,
Yeah.
and these are screenshots directly from your video. Um, how did you feel in that 2018 JoeCon when we all knew? I mean, I wasn't there, but when everybody knew it was going to be the last one.
There was a sense of finality, but also a sort of a glimmer of hope, because that was the second time they tried to end JoeCon. JoeCon was supposed to end after the 2016 convention in Loveland, Colorado. It was at the Hasbro panel, or it may have been at the Fun Publication panel. It was at one of the panels where they announced that the license had been renewed for 2 more years and that JoeCon would be running through 2018. So we had already had this experience of, this is the last time we're going to see each other. This is our big family reunion. This is what everybody gets together for. Back in 2016, there were people were crying, people were hugging, and then when it was announced that it's not quite over yet, everybody was really ecstatic, and I think everybody was determined to make the most of those last 2 years. So by the time we got to 2018 in Chattanooga, there was a sense of finality. There was no surprise announcement that, oh no, we're going to keep it going. Everybody knew that this was it, uh, and it was a special weekend. I connected with a lot of really people who are still really close friends, um, but at the same time, there was like a little window of hope, because out in Georgia, Ed Schumacher had this little show the same year, called Joefest. It was a little show, and I didn't make it to that one. I really only had the time to get off of work to travel like one major trip that year,
And
so
correct
I
me if I'm
couldn't go
wrong.
to
I
both.
I know I asked Jason Morrill the other not long ago, but I'm blanking right now. I think JoeCon was in the summer that year,
Yeah,
and Joe Fest was a little bit before.
yeah.
But Joe Fest was a small show. It wasn't what it became.
Oh yes.
So
Uh,
yeah.
I did see, some of the pictures and some of the people who, you know, came back and talked about the event, and it was small. It was small, um, but there was a lot of the same people talking about Joe Fest that attended JoeCon, and so in 2019, the following year, the second Joe Fest. I took the family out to Augusta, Georgia, and we, checked that out. And that was still, it was much larger than the first one, but it was still much smaller than what it is now. They like doubled or tripled the space that they had in the first one, and it still wasn't enough. They had Sergeant Slaughter there. There was a line out the door for him. It's the first time I actually had a table at a convention. I actually set up an HCC788 table at the show, and that's also the first year I did my uh, Joefest card, where I had everybody sign my card at the table.
Yep.
And it was it was cramped. It was extremely crowded, but it was like all of our friends. It was like the family reunion was reignited. It's not canceled. No, we're not going to do an official JoeCon like in the old days, but you know, if we show up, we can still see our friends.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of been happening since then. So and that sense of that little window of hope that was present at the 2018 JoeCon. There was a little buzz about it.
Mm.
So that was, yeah, that was kind of the mood. It was somber because we knew this was definitely the last one. But yeah, with a measure of hope.
That's that's pretty amazing because I know that the one thing I'll say is because Hasbro was always in support of JoeCon in 2018, and they were just as they had been supportive of BotCon that ended in 2016. Now it's fully independent. It's not backed by Hasbro, and a lot of people just rolled over. Now a similar story happened, and I don't have firsthand experience with this, but PowerCon used to be backed by Mattel, is my understanding, and it was out west. Val Staples, who ran PowerCon, when they moved it out east and he no longer had the backing of Mattel, he brought in a lot of indie companies to kind of fill that gap. And apparently, at the very last PowerCon, like the last official PowerCon, which he may do future ones, but the last big one in 2023, Four Horsemen Studios had such a huge presence and a lineup that doubled back on itself. You know, lots of people who went there from Ostradamus Toys to Mega J to Jason, who we just talked about. They said there's that Four Horsemen Studios got that massive following. And as Joe Fest continues to grow and continues to be that way, I'm like, I wonder if that could be Delta 17 and 5x5 toys one day. And you saw our setup the last show
Yeah,
and the previous one, and we're not Hasbro, not by a million miles. We're not even Four Horsemen if we're talking about the big indie companies. But it's nice to see that. See, back when Hasbro was there, right? There was no Skeletron, right? You know, there was no Grindstone Toys, Call Sign Longbow. There was no Delta. You know, Four Horsemen wasn't going to those shows because it was mostly a Joe show. I think the only other indie company was maybe Marauder. You know, I might be missing one,
yeah.
right? But it's interesting to see the indies kind of go and help fill that gap. And like you said, you know, I think 2020 was the first time Ed put Joe Fest in the big convention center that it is now.
Yeah.
But it's so wholesome, heartwarming to go there and see that two-floor lobby. Because what were the after-hours hangouts like at JoeCon? Were they kind of
It's
similar?
it was very similar to how it is now, but that was like everybody got their after hours habits from JoeCon. So we were
Mm,
it was a continuation of some old traditions. So yeah, that second floor lobby would fill up, and occasionally you'd see one of the personalities come through, and everybody would want to say hi, get a picture, and it was yeah, it was similar to the way it is now. It wasn't quite as big, obviously. It
yeah.
is snowball.
Was there a two-floor
um,
Oh no, sorry. JoeCon moved around, so I was gonna say never mind. I was gonna ask, was there a two-floor lobby hangout? But obviously it moved around, so that's not a straight answer type of
yeah,
question.
JoeCon went
So
to like different places.
yeah, and I know people have asked Ed, "Hey, can you move Joe Fest? You know, it's hard to get to Augusta." Here's the thing, right? I never want to leave that convention center at the Marriott. I understand, like in your case, I think you were able to make the drive. For me, the last couple years, I've taken connector flights. The last 2 years was me leaving Vancouver to get to Minnesota, connecting to Charlotte, jump in a rental car, or have a friend pick me up and take another 2.5, 3 hours to Augusta. It's a bit of an onerous travel, but at the end of the day, once you get there, oh my God, you lose yourself for at least 72 hours. And if you can get there on the Thursday and you leave on the Monday, you basically get 4 days. Some people have gone so far as to come on the Wednesday. right?
Yeah.
And so you really do feel that the spirit of JoeCon has continued through JoeFest, at least through the fans, if not Hasbro themselves,
Yeah, I think so. It has a lot of the same feel, and you do make an interesting point that that convention center kind of feels like home, like you start to know it like the back of your hand. It's one of the personalities of the show. But yeah, obviously uh, there were some different priorities for JoeCon, because one of the things that was a big motivator for a lot of people for JoeCon was the official exclusives. You know, the JoeCon exclusive sets that you could get. They were really expensive, but they were, low production numbers, and they were like official. Um, and so you had a lot of people really going specifically for that. And so you don't really have, I mean, there are the individual vendors do exclusives on their own, but there's no Hasbro to do, a Hasbro official Joe Fest, exclusive. But that was never what I went for anyway. So,
hmm
like, going and hanging out with somebody like Jason, that is something that's special, and that's something that is much like JoeCon. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
and
the
yeah.
kind of meetups, the kind of conversations that we have, that's very similar to how JoeCon was.
Now, some people feel that while JoeFest has got that big convention experience um, feel to it, some people also feel that to some degree, Assembly Required has also taken up the torch and the mantle for what JoeCon was. And DFW, incidentally, is also evolving, which you've been to both of those shows, right?
That's very fair, and I think Assembly Required deserves to be mentioned, because I mean they've been doing that in Des Moines now for quite a few years, and I have made it to Assembly Required, and we've been talking about making it to Assembly Required this year, but we haven't settled on that yet.
Is that a long
Um,
travel for you? Because you're already in Central Time, and that's also Central Time. So is that a
yeah,
long
it's
travel for
actually
you?
a really easy drive.
Okay, good.
It is like it's a breeze. You know, you get on the highway, and before you know it, you're there. It's really not bad. Um, but the Assembly Required has a lot of really cool stuff. They have like really good graphic design T-shirts, posters, and stuff like that. It's
hmm
smaller than Joe Fest, but it is more Joe focused.
hmm
Whereas Joe Fest, I mean, it has you know movie guys, and it has wrestling, and it has other things.
Yep.
Um, Assembly Required is more GI Joe focused.
Mm.
It is smaller, but a lot of the same people, a lot of the people you see there are the same people that you see at Joe Fest. So it's like, for me, it's like a bonus opportunity to see friends that I would otherwise see only once a year. Assembly requires a really great institution, and I'd love to see that grow a bit.
Yeah.
I hate to like say as an alternative to Joe Fest, but as an additional opportunity. I think it's something that everybody should consider if they're within traveling distance.
The thing that always makes me sad is leaving Joe Fest every year, and that sinking feeling when I'm driving to the airport or riding to the airport, and I'm like, I'm not going to see these people for a year. Now, the last 2 years, somebody's asked me, "Will I see you at AR?" And that's when I began to realize that's a regular thing for a lot of the hardcore Joe people.
Yeah,
And while it's not going to happen for me this year, I would love to be able to say, instead of see you next year, Brian, I'll see you in half a year max.
that
And
would be fantastic.
in
Uh,
2024, Jason Merle asked me, "Well, I see you at Assembly Required." This year, while we were tearing down the booth for the show, Jason, sorry, not Jason, I just said his name. Ryan Meltzer came over from the Roma table and said, "Will I see you at Assembly Required?" And I'm like, probably not this year. And it'd be nice to be able to make that part of the convention circuit because a lot of the people support that show just as much, right? Skeletron is like the key sponsor for that. So yeah, maybe. And I know Bryan is trying to grow. Bryan Sauer, the other
Yeah.
Bryan, one of the other Bryans in our community, is trying to grow Assembly Required. I know he doesn't want to lose some of the intimacy, but it's not to say that he couldn't go from 400 people, which I heard Dak said last time. Dak, one of his helpers, said they got 400 people, which has grown from what it was a few years before. And who knows? Maybe they'll get 1 to 2,000 eventually, and then all of a sudden it starts to become a bigger commercial opportunity for the indie
Yeah.
companies.
What, a couple of years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago at Assembly Required. I guess it was a couple of years ago. They brought Michael Charles Hill
Yep.
to the show, who was the person who wrote the Cold Slither episode of the animated series. The guy had
Yep.
never been to any GI Joe anything before, um, and that panel that he did, um, what like opened our eyes about a lot of things. He started talking about a lot of things and like giving answers to a bunch of mysteries that we've had about the animated series. He wrote for the Deke series as well. He helped with the Special Mission Brazil set.
Yep.
So
I
we
think he
learned
created
why.
He created Claymore.
Yeah, yes, and we learned why it's Brazil of all places.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of thing that Assembly requires offers, and um, I haven't been able to make it every year, but I would love to make it every year. It is it's it's its own thing. It's not Joe Fest. It's got its own character, but I'm really grateful that they do it. Plus, they have some epic T-shirts. I have some T-shirts that are just wicked awesome that I try to pick up. I try to pick up something special there every time.
So many people say that it's a top two show for them every year. Some people say it's their favorite. So um, hopefully one day I'll get to experience it. I'm gonna close off this stream by looking at a few memories here from Joe Fest. Remember this?
Yes, I do. Wow,
This was a good memory. This is a 2023 show, my first Joe Fest.
that
Um, yeah,
that was a moment. That was I mean, look at all the look at like Kelly is there and Zazel and Hans. Look at that. Like that is a fantastic image, and that was a great moment. Sarge is fantastic. He's just a really sweet person, really personable, and this moment to me like is the pinnacle of what Joe Fest uh, can be, because it's a bunch
yes.
of friends um, gathered together with a giant wrestler. So I think that's the pinnacle.
Like if you told me years ago we could have had a shot like this, I would be like, "There's no way."
Yeah,
And this was taken over 2 years ago, and this just makes me happy to see. I got to share this moment with you, and that's why I thought it was really good to have a stream. Like as one of the things we talk about on the stream, this is why we go, right?
yeah,
And you talk about the size of what Joe Fest has become. That's one side of the convention floor.
right.
It continues over, and then there's the upstairs floor
Yeah,
on top of all this, which they just opened this past year,
yeah,
right? And then there's the foyer at the front, the vestibule area, you know, which has big lineups. This is the other part of the upstairs. This is the after hours trading
yeah,
floor. Look how busy that gets,
yeah,
right? This is not even officially part of the show. Well, sorry, it is an officially recognized event, but it's not show. It's not show floor hours, which
right.
incidentally they've renamed this as the Aaron Dietrich from Roma Collectibles Memorial, which is a
Yes,
great tribute. But the entrance foyer, this is what it looks like. And just beyond this crowd, you see the tables out in the vestibule area, right? This is what the show has become. And look at the lineup. And this is
yeah,
behind that lineup that I showed you. That's what the GI Joe community. If you don't like that word, then say GI Joe fandom. I'm still okay with the word community. Has become.
Yes,
And
yeah, it's really a wonderful thing. If you haven't had a chance to experience it, strongly encourage you to experience it at least once.
mhm. But then you'll never want to not go if you experienced it once.
Yeah, we've played with the idea of not going this year, but yeah, we couldn't stay away.
You and I had a code word that you came up
Yes,
with. You said to me, you I think I phoned you because you had some questions about, hey, just about this coming Joe Fest. Are you gonna be there? And I'm like, yeah. I ended up phoning you, and you said your code word, Ken, is the horn blows at midnight. If I send you
yes,
that message, Ken, it means I'm coming. And
yes.
you sent me the message, I think, on the Friday, or was it the Thursday? You said the horn blows at midnight.
I think I sent it on Thursday. I tried to give you some advance notice.
That's right, because you were
We
there Friday, right?
Yeah, we really threw that together at the last minute. We had just gotten back from some travel and hadn't been home for very long, so like it was kind of touch and go until about the time we left. Like how we were going to get there, where we were going to stay. Yes, I decided since you were kind enough to talk with me about it and help me figure out who all's going
Because
to be
you,
there, who am I going to
well, yeah.
miss if I don't
Well, that's the
go.
thing, right? Because Gaz was returning this year,
Yeah,
right? I think you already knew Zazel was going to be there, but like you're like, oh, Gaz is going to be there because he missed the previous year,
yeah,
and because you had not been. Most years you're part of the build up. This year you
right,
were off the radar in the build up, and like in the
yeah,
week of, you're like, I think I can make this work. But other than knowing about our exclusive, which incidentally is back there because we asked you to review it, you didn't really know, like, oh, is Marauder bringing anything? Like,
yeah.
who's doing what at this show? Because I've been a little bit off to the side. Um, and and then essentially, you actually asked Jason Merle to say the words to me. The horn
Yeah.
blows at midnight, and I said the horn blows at midnight. I didn't realize that you just asked him to say that to me,
Uh,
not that he did. That you didn't actually tell him. It was code for Bryan HCC is coming, and I didn't. I just assumed he knew when he said that. I'm like, the horn blows at midnight, Jason. Next thing you know, you showed up there, and he's like, Ken, he didn't tell me what that meant. He just told me to say that to you. And that's gonna be our new code word for things going
it's
forward.
fantastic.
You
It's
know,
it's a Jack Benny reference. It's old stuff, and I'm old, so that works. And
you're not
yes,
that much older
that's
than me.
yeah,
You're not
that's
that much
yes.
older than me. Yeah,
Well, look at all this great. Look at all this great
you're
hair.
in between the age of me and my sister. I think she's a year older than you. So
All
you
right.
know,
Well, okay. Well, I feel it's not the years, it's the mileage.
okay, fair enough, fair enough. But you know what? We're young at heart, and I
Yes.
think anything else you want to touch on before we sign off here?
Not really. I just want to say thanks to you for hanging out at Joefest. Thanks for having me on the show. And thanks for being a good friend. It's been a delight to get to know you, and at least once a year, get to say hi to you in person.
Absolutely. And thanks for that. And thanks for being here. I will put the link for Brian's channel so we can get him to 20,000 subscribers and, force him to make at least a one off comeback here and there. But otherwise, I don't have a unique or special outro, so I'm just going to wave goodbye while we quickly sign off and end the stream. But can you give me
Thank you,
a only.
Marianne. Thanks to my girlfriend, Marianne, and
Yes. She comes every
the
year
whole
now, which is good.
yes,
You know
the
what? Why don't you.
horn, the horn blows at midnight.
That's a great way to end the stream. That's how I was going to ask you to end it. The horn blows at midnight, and only G.I. Joe is
Is
G.I.
GI
Joe.
Joe.